It's the 23rd of July and time now for the Front Runner Football Podcast, the second edition of the week, as we reflect on what's been happening as far as South African football is concerned and what happens in the news cycle. And of course, right now, the big thing is still we wait to find out when the resumption of play will actually happen. But what's been happening in the interim is that Advocate Motlanthe, the CEO of SAFA, has been quite active in terms of reaching out to the media and communicating their side of the story. He spoke to the likes of Thomas Mosia earlier in the week, but also gave his time to SAFJA and their esteemed members to discuss what's been happening and some of the murmurs mostly of the discontent between the two parties that are SAFA and the PSL. And so it's at this point I'll bring in my panel that's made up of Mazola Molefe, Velile Mnyandu, and John T. Mark, the latter gentleman having been part of that Zoom discussion, and John T. and Velile. Let's start with you, Stavich, in terms of things that you kind of learned or took away from your discussion with Mr. Motlanthe when you engaged him as to SAFA's place currently in this COVID-inflicted soccer economy.
Look, I think yesterday, what was clear from the SAFA acting CEO,
Halima Motlanthe.
Yeah. Sorry, Tebza. What was clear from Mr. Motlanthe, in fact, Advocate Tebogo Motlanthe, was that as SAFA, they are forging ahead. They've committed to the date of the 1st of August. That's when their referees will be ready, to officiate, and that's the date that they are committing to. And also, I think one of the things he said was that they also boosted by the email that they got after their interaction with, because they had a meeting with FIFA earlier this week, where FIFA was guaranteeing them that in terms of the dates, they can move them as it suits them, because I think the PSL was saying they need about 45 days to complete the program. So based on the projections that they had, because they wanted to finish, I think, and by the end of the month. So maybe that was not going to be possible, because remember, there's also the issue of the registration of the windows that have to start for the new season. Yeah. So they got the assurance from FIFA that even there, as the FA, obviously with consultation of the PSL, they can still work around that. So the tone of SAFA, it has changed from the tone of, because also some of the questions which came up yesterday, John T will also come in and assist here because he was there yesterday. Some of the questions also were around the issue of compliance, of which this has been a bone of contention between SAFA and the PSL, the issue of compliance. And the feeling here is that also this has been a bit messed up by the communication lines of government, which has been communicating different messages to SAFA and the PSL. And what Advocate Motlanthe said yesterday was that as SAFA, they are looking beyond the issue of compliance, because they've been waiting for a meeting with the PSL and it's not happening around this issue. And now one area which they are looking at government exonerating them in terms of them as SAFA being in charge of making sure that the clubs and the PSL is complying around this, because the PSL already has its compliance officer, and the clubs also, I understand that they have got the compliance officers. So, but the tone that we got yesterday from that session was that SAFA wants the PSL to restart its program and finish it, and also some of the strict conditions that they had attached, they've pulled them away, because as of today, I understand more than 40 referees started reporting to a camp here in Joburg. There are medical tests that are going on. There's a fitness test that will follow. And part of those medical tests also include the COVID-19 tests that they will be doing. There are more referees who will be joining at that camp this weekend. It does look like they are forging ahead.
John T, I mean, you get the sense that, SAFA are just kind of trying to do everything by the book. They're being very rigid in terms of, listen, we just want to make sure that everything is done as best as it can. But then you hear this talk of them wanting to be absolved from any liability. What would that look like? I mean, is that a dispensation they were looking for from the government to say, okay, cool, there is a situation where we can see the PSL forge on ahead without you guys kind of being blamed for anything that might happen if the compliance ends up being so insurmountable that the two can't come to some sort of accord to help each other?
Well, look, from what Advocate Motlanthe said at the meeting we had with them, basically SAFA want to know he gave the impression they're sort of bending over backwards to try and be as amenable as possible to what the league want. So he was basically saying that there was supposed to be a meeting, my understanding, when I spoke to him a week ago as well, and he said there's supposed to be a meeting between the PSL compliance officer, Michael Murphy, and the two SAFA compliance officers. But this meeting has not happened. And it seems like the PSL are the ones not initiating it or not wanting to have the meeting. That's the impression given. He did say, as it stands, the meeting hasn't happened. And now what he said, as Velile mentioned, is that the SAFA are prepared to step aside. SAFA's concern, I think, is that, there's been... this is speculation, but there's been COVID outbreaks in a lot of teams. There's been problems with, teams with the virus spreading. They don't want, a situation where you have the season kicking off in a biologically safe environment, in inverted commas, because then there's a huge outbreak of the virus within the supposedly safe environment. And their compliance officers were never happy with the testing and safety and things like that. But they're then held liable because from what Mr. Motlanthe or Advocate Motlanthe was saying, according to the Joint Task Force document or the Joint Liaison Committee between the PSL and SAFA, the document basically said that SAFA were ultimately the ones responsible for having the final say, for saying, okay, you can go ahead, or okay, you can't go ahead. So he's basically saying, if government and the league will take on the responsibility, whichever one, whether it's government or the league, then SAFA will happily step aside and let them get on with it. That's basically what he said. So that's sort of SAFA putting the ball in the court of the PSL, certainly, and in the court of government in a sense, because he sort of said that there was a letter that Ivan Korza got. That he had that press conference. We got a letter on June 23rd, from government saying we can go ahead and start this thing. SAFA claim they never received the same letter. They're saying they got different communication from government. So the blame was slightly laid at the door of government as well, in terms of the fact that they've been communicating not as one with both parties, with the PSL and SAFA. So SAFA was sort of saying we didn't know that was what the government had said to the PSL. So they're trying to get, I think, to just say, okay, we'll just back out of this while refs are ready. As Velile mentioned, the first batch of referees have gone into training today. Basically, they're basically saying this is what we can do. We've done everything we can do. We're ready to go August the 1st. That's the date we've given. It's now up to the PSL. I think what he said was the PSL haven't confirmed the date because they said they need to talk to their stakeholders. And then there's obviously a Board of Governors meeting, which I've had confirmed that is supposed to take place tomorrow. The problem with these BOG meetings is, you say that, they're going to finally give a go ahead, or they're going to cancel the season, or they're going to make a decision, but then no decision actually comes out of these things. So I've lost a bit of faith in the BOG meetings, and certainly in terms of actually a decision being made after they've taken place. But hopefully the PSL will make a decision and will say, okay, we've spoken to our stakeholders and we can start August 1st. Teams are training. Teams are still training. Everything is good to go now from SAFA's side, supposedly. So hopefully August 1st is the date to kick off. Otherwise, the PSL will say we just can't have the season, which will throw football into total chaos, by my understanding as well. So
well, yeah, I'm wondering what's going to be more chaotic, Mazola, not playing the season through or playing it with all the rumblings and murmurings of what's happening at some of these clubs, and obviously the compliance issues. What is the correct path now? Because they all kind of seem booby-trapped, and in a case of SAFA essentially saying to the PSL, "Your move."
You sure you want my opinion on that?
Yes, I do.
I
do. At the end of the saga, we're going to make a montage with everybody's opinions.
I don't know, man.
12 weeks. And just say how, we're going to make a little stop animation footage out of it. Sure. Give us your hot take.
Okay. Look, for me, it's still the same. That's what I said to you and John T on Monday, I think it was, and even in previous podcasts, I think when Velile was back as well. I've said this before, that for me, if you cancel the season, it does not solve the problem. It doesn't solve anything, because you still have to work side by side with SAFA again.
Yeah.
To start the new season, which is even more complicated now, because this time around you can't be in a bio bubble.
Of course.
Nobody in their right mind is gonna go into a bio bubble for 7 or 8 months to complete a season. So you need to work hand in hand to formulate a plan for the 2020-21 season, which obviously SAFA, being a member federation of FIFA, have to write back to FIFA to communicate with FIFA when the season is starting, so that it can be curated on the TMS, and it can be clear when the transfer window starts. And remember, I said earlier this week that the transfer window can only last up to 12 weeks.
Right. Okay.
Soonish when they can give that date, because they've already furnished a lot of the European leagues with the set dates for the transfer. I mean, look, this COVID-19 isn't going to vanish overnight. So for me, even if you take, I think the only reason why there would be a decision to cancel the league is only because time is running out. That's pretty much it. And I said to you guys, I don't know if I had done the Wits story about retrenchment or not by that time. I don't think. No, I think I wrote that story on Tuesday, a day after the podcast. But the thing is, you've got short-term contracts from that kicked in 1st of July to end of August. 2 months short-term contracts that were signed in anticipation that the league would resume and be played within that period. But if that doesn't happen, and SAFA now, that letter that they sent to FIFA is talking about the 1st of August until the second week of September, which is their way of trying to give the PSL the 6 weeks that they need to complete the season, including both the top tier and the second tier as well. But now that's unlikely to happen, because the season quite possibly cannot go beyond August 31 because of these short-term deals, and also the vet situation in that the staff has now been retrenched. Many of them are obviously taking their VSPs, and the club will cease to exist by the end of August 31st. So what happens if the league extends for 2 more weeks? So does that mean vets will go into these remaining games without a team manager, without a kit manager, without a CEO, without logistics, without Bra George doing all the security detailing and whatever, which I suppose some of them they might not need if they're in a bio bubble, because then the government and the league and stuff are taking care of all of that because you are in one place. But you still need some type of manpower within the team to do the day-to-day stuff that the team needs, and vets will not have any of that. And are you now going to what sort of agreements are you going to enter into with these players whose contracts 2 months contracts are coming to an end at the end of August? Are you now going to pay them a pro rata fee for the 2 weeks that they're going to play? So it's just messy altogether. Especially if you add the vets equation into it as well, it becomes all the more messy. I think that's one of the reasons why there's a push possibly from some quarters to end the season and start looking ahead. But for me, it doesn't solve the problem, because you still have Michael still has to meet with Tulani, the two compliance officers from SAFA to map a way forward for the new season, which is even longer, obviously, because I assume you'd have a situation where teams insist now that they want to have home games and away games and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you can end the season. It's a temporary sort of arrangement or setup. But in the long run, we still have, if the two bodies can't work together, then we still, I'm starting to believe that football could actually collapse. I'm starting to believe that.
That's an interesting view.
Football but one
I was saying about the contracts. I'm just gonna chip in because I think it's relevant. But he basically said what I heard this week was the possibility, or someone did raise the suggestion, that perhaps they could finish the league by the end of August and then play out the Nedbank Cup and the playoffs. So you get most of the teams that have short-term contracts out of the way. Though obviously that doesn't solve the Wits conundrum because they're in the Nedbank semis. But that way you finish the league off. So the majority of teams are done.
Right.
If you can finish the league in 4 weeks from the 1st of August, then you play the Nedbank and the playoffs after that. And then there's only like a few clubs, like 5 clubs or however many it is that, what is it, 7 clubs, something like that. That have to deal with the extending contract, but that's another possibility.
Yeah, I guess.
But I think you see what is interesting, especially going to this BOG, because also previously there've been proposals, especially around the Great Africa Championship, because some teams from the Great Africa Championship, some of which have also been commenting discreetly, they've been anonymous in how they've been talking about this situation, because these are the teams which seem to be struggling when they talk about affording what will be happening in the PSE, or who will be paying in the PSE. But even there, we still have a lot of questions. But I think from what I've gathered today, it does look like, especially the PSL is going ahead next weekend.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's a relief. That's a relief because, hey, guys, no.
Yeah. Maybe let me not say next weekend, but because SAFA has committed the date, but it does look like this is the direction that they could be taking. Because look, like Mazola is also saying, I was reading this afternoon, for instance, that French Ligue A could collapse if there's no government guarantee that will be coming from the French government, because they couldn't complete their program. So for me, this is a case study already for our clubs, especially here at home, that look, it is not a solution not to complete your program, because like Mazola is saying, we have to start by now in September or late in September or early October, the new season. And how do you start that? Because possibly we could still be in this level 2, because I was listening to Dr. Karim yesterday, and he was talking about that the worst case for us will be out in late October or in November of the current COVID-19 situation we're in, and we can see, So these are the things that we need to look at. But from what I've seen, from what I've gathered in some quarters, it does look like the direction is towards playing. But I'm just talking about the PSL. I'm not sure about the Glad Africa Championship because there are still some issues there. And also you can also see that there are other clubs which are also against Ajax getting the championship or being promoted if that program is not completed.
Yes.
Ajax is 7 points clear. 7 points clear. There are 6 matches left in that program. So we'll just have to see how this situation goes tomorrow. I guess we can all speculate and say what is going to happen. But look, and I think tomorrow they will have to come up with the final decision. They will have to come up with the final decision because the tone from SAFA now has changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's change. So I think tomorrow we will know what's going to happen because the 1st of August is just next weekend.
Of course.
Of course. And also the league and the clubs will have to make a decision because most of these clubs, like the guys were saying earlier, the extension of the contracts is until the end of the month, next month. So that's why. But look, also on the issue of compliance and why compliance has been key. I know that John T in the press conference with the advocate yesterday, I was praising Zambia and other leagues for coming back. But I think one area now, maybe in hindsight, with the events that have been going on, and this is where I have to applaud the PSL, SAFA, and our government for the steps that they are taking around this thing. Is that you can see this thing in Zambia is not well coordinated in the Zambian Super League.
Yeah,
they came back, but already there are 34 players from only 2 clubs, 34 players who have tested positive, and they are training. So these players could also have been contacts in training with some of these players, and some of them are even playing, So it means that, this thing in Zambia is not well coordinated. So I think this is where credit also has to go to our clubs to say, you can see the plan. Yes, I know even today, Super Sport United came out, the players who tested positive, but better they test positive now so that they don't go to the BSE.
For sure. Okay, let's check into some transfer news, Mazola. Lesedi Kapinga heading to Mamelodi Sundowns. It seems like the injection of youth and talent is going full steam ahead with the Brazilians bringing him in as part of this rejuvenation of the squad that's happening. We all can wonder as to whether the players coming in are going to get any game time, but there definitely seems to be a long-term plan in place, as we've discussed on the podcast here, with Veli chiming in as to Pitso's vision for the team.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure about Lesedi Kapinga in that Sundowns team. I'm convinced of him as a player, but whether he will get a lot of game time at Sundowns, I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult for me to even give an opinion because I'm trying to picture him where he fits in and all of that. It's I'm struggling. I must be honest. I'm struggling to see if you consider the players that they are bringing in and the players that they've already been linked with, and you think of Lesedi Kapinga, you tend to feel like it's one of those, because he was doing so well at his club at Black Leopards. Let's grab him. Let's cripple the rivals. Let's make sure we beat
supporting players. Oh, you're gonna get it now on social media.
We beat. Let's try to beat our rivals to his signature. Because obviously in the past he had been linked with a Super Sport and a Vets before this saga with Vets being sold. He had been linked to those 2 clubs especially. And obviously there was a rumor about the Orlando Pirates, but by the time the Orlando Pirates rumor came around, Lesedi had already signed a pre-contract with Mamelodi Sundowns. So look, for me personally, very exciting player. When I watch Lesedi play, I get excited.
Yeah.
How he's the ball is always glued to his feet when he's running around, his passes, his shots. But I'm trying to think maybe the mistake I'm making is that I'm trying to compare him with the players that he's going to compete with, and I don't see who he sort of can replace or compete with. I'm trying to think of Themba Zwane. He doesn't quite play like Themba Zwane. Gaston Serino, he doesn't quite play like Gaston Serino. So where is he gonna play? Where's Lesedi gonna play? But look, we'll wait for the team to prove us wrong. Maybe, obviously, Coach Pito knows best, but let's wait and see. But for me, wrong move.
Okay, I mean, that's interesting.
No, this is a very important point from Mazola, and I would like to pick up from where he says, can he play in Mshishi's role? I don't know.
Well,
and also in Sereno's role, I don't know. Can he play at the top? Because Sundowns sometimes, they just use their attackers, especially when there are injuries to people like Afonso. They will just put a speedy player at the top. That even someone like Kama, someone like Pesitao, Dolly at some stage would also play, even as a false nine sometimes. Can he do that? I don't know. And also, does he have the qualities of a player who would make it on the continent? Because when you talk about a Sundowns potential signing or Sundowns signing, it must be someone who you can clearly see that, look, even on the African stage, he can make it. I don't know. Yeah. But maybe.
Well, this is the thing.
Maybe here, because one of the things I listened to Coach Pito when he was talking about on unveiling Kapinga, was that he was still young. I'm not sure if 25 is young. He was saying he was still young, and these are the players who are going to help them, because you can see that they are clearly now refreshing the team at Sundowns, and in refreshing the team, maybe this is when now they've even brought in someone like Rulani to come back, because Rulani, even previously, he was also working a lot with the young players, if you look in the era, or you look at the time when he came, he was promoted from being a junior coach to an assistant coach around 2014. That's when the likes of Dolly came back, also from Ajax Cape Town, and there were more younger players who were signed. So in terms of duties now, because the Grand Megamans are coming, you can count all these young guys who are coming into that space. But Lesedi Kapinga, I don't know, because one of the other things I had picked up, he's on a 5-year deal. Yeah. And there's someone in the last few weeks who had told me that he could be loaned out.
Like Moby, like Nyuko.
Like Nyuko Moby. So we really have to ask, is he really Coach Pito's signing? I don't know.
John T, these are Coach Pito's words. He says, we see him as a Keletso, Machalwa. We see him having a few characteristics of Serino, a few characteristics of Themba Zwane, of combination plays, and he's got the speed also, so he fits the profile.
I disagree.
Yeah, but I mean, who writes those
No, those are his words.
No. I was listening to his soundbite. He was saying these things.
Okay, sorry. Sometimes coaches, I think people do just let other people write that for them, and they don't mind. But
well, this is kind of what Billy was alluding to in terms of signing.
I don't know. Sundowns. I think that there's truth in everything. I mean, if Mazola is mentioning Sundowns stockpiling players, there's a truth in that. I mean, they've bought a whole lot of players that haven't really made it. They've also bought a whole lot of players that have. So whether Kapinga will be in one category or the other, I don't know. But he's obviously, 6 goals and 6 assists. For Leopards this season is a decent haul. Done well for them. And he's a good prospect. Again, you can look at someone like Ngoma, who was brilliant at Cape Town City, signed for Sundowns and barely played a game.
And Jeremy
Jeremy the same. Also at Supersport was banging in the goals. I think Jeremy was a systemic problem at Sundowns. I don't think they really worked with a Jeremy Brocky type striker, the system that Pizzo was trying to play there. Ngoma, I'm not sure what happened with him because he showed so much class at City there. It was a shame it hasn't worked out for him. So there are those players, and then there are players like Tapela Moreno, who's come in and done fantastically well. You know, like Sibusi Vilakazi, who's coming from Wits and done fantastically well. So which category he'll fit into, I do totally take both gentlemen's point about where Kapinga would. If I was to pick a Sundowns first 11, he wouldn't be in it, right?
He'll be on the bench.
Sundowns
not even on the bench.
Well, maybe if there are 5 subs from next season, I don't know.
At least he's returning home because I remember a few years back when he was busy on his first preseason with Black Leopards. I went to a preseason tournament in Guyana, and that's when I picked up that he had previously been to the Sundowns Academy. In fact, the guys they were saying he had been to the Sundowns Academy, but that was then. Not all players sometimes who are at the academy they make it to the first team. So at least the dream for him that was before he also went to TTM. You know, so the dream for him to don the yellow colors of Sundowns. That dream is finally being realized, but I'm sure it's a fat bank account.
Machankura.
I don't know, well, cash in, I guess, in this economy. Yeah. So now that Johnny Ferreira looks like he's going to be going to the guys who have taken over TTM's status in the Glad Africa Championship, of course, with Sekhukhune FC. Who then for TTM? I mean, in terms of potential coaches to kind of walk in there and obviously try to keep them in the AMSA Premiership. That'll be the first kind of mandate. I mean, there's murmurs of Owen Dagama, but he's still got a year left on his contract, obviously, with Highlands. But that changes if someone comes in and pays the 55 million rand that Highlands is valued at. Maybe that changes things there. But who then becomes a candidate for helping TTM find some balance next season and retain their status in the league?
Yeah, look, it's a tricky one, so to speak, because they've obviously, I mean, they've given people the impression that they don't have the money to pay. They don't have the capacity to pay top dollar for top coaches. I mean, they even before the sale was ratified by the league, they'd already told Kevin Hunt that they can't afford his Lamborghini. You know, so that leaves you to think. Although to be fair, with his pedigree and his success, you know, Kevin quite possibly is above their salary threshold or salary cap, if there is one at TTM, because we've seen now that a lot of high earners at Wits are being linked with, you know, some have already, you know, signed contracts at Sundowns, some are linked with moves to Pirates and may have already signed contracts there, and some Chiefs are showing an interest as well. So we had a story this week that Owen Dagama was contacted by TTM, and the coach obviously still has a year left on his Highlands Park contract. And I think there may even be an option on his 1-year contract as well. So, you know, potentially they would have to buy to compensate Highlands for that if Owen goes there or well, I mean, unless Owen resigns and decides he's heading back to Venda. And also there are other possibilities. I mean, you can never sort of be without a potential candidate for a job. I don't know at this stage. I mean, there's Braden Malisela who's still out in the cold in terms of as far as jobs are concerned. They could look there, or they could look even in the lower division if money is the problem, to look for coaches there that could come in and get the job done. So it will be tricky. I mean, if they've already been saying that money is an issue, then it becomes an issue. But what does that mean? Does it mean they can't pay 500K plus for a coach, or does it mean they can only afford to pay a coach 80,000 rands or 100,000 rands? Because you never know, it varies. I mean, you might think a club cannot afford to pay coaches big salaries, but you'd be surprised that some clubs had coaches, and given their shoestring budgets, coaches were getting paid 350K a month or 150K a month. So it is very surprised, because we don't know just exactly how much these clubs have in their kitty to be able to afford these coaches.
Yeah, I think one of the other points here is that it's now the things are changing. TTM is no longer operating in the Glad Africa mode. Now these are PSL levels that they're coming into, and for me, and I think also even with the club licensing standards at the league, they are different to how they've been operating in the Glad Africa Championship than they would be operating now in the PSL. So that's why I've always been interested in a club that would come in and say, in TTM's case, in fact, to say, let's first appoint a technical director who comes up with our technical vision in terms of where we want to go, and also in terms of the structures as well. And then once you've appointed the technical director or sporting director, then he comes up with a blueprint of what type of a coach are they looking for. But one of the challenges that we've been having sometimes, and I don't want to get into the space, I don't know how is the thinking sometimes from the clubs, is that they will just go and pick, and but is that coach going to suit the type of talent that they have, or the type of talent that they want to have, or the type of talent that they want to bring? So this is where it becomes important now, the technical vision, which will be coming with the sporting director at the club. So I just hope that we can have some of our teams. I know there are a few who are doing this thing that we are talking about, but I just hope that we can have, because sometimes even the issue of just recycling, for me, is not good. This thing of recycling the same coaches is not good. If it means go down to the lower structures, or go and recruit the top young coaches who are coming up, identify these coaches. If you say, okay, you are going to put this one as an assistant, this one as a second assistant, and if it means there's a guy, who's attending a class with Lepito Mosumane currently, Florent Ibenge, you ask yourself, if Florent Ibenge, he was European and white, he would have been long here in the PSL. This is a top accomplished coach on the continent. But you know what? I don't know. Maybe it's to do with the vision. Some of our clubs don't have this technical vision, because recycling someone who was there, and I know the sentiments sometimes that go with people who come from the same region, but sometimes you have to try and take football to the next level.
I hear you. So I guess to that note, it sounds in an ideal world, John T, that you want to have these things in place, but for ROI, which is kind of what this whole VITS thing has been looked at, and the TTM thing is just a business equation. They're going to have to spend money if they're going to want to retain that status, because as we hear, the top coaches, ones who know the lay of the land and can hit the ground running, don't mind the conditions they're working in, and will get the team to play, those cost money.
Yeah, obviously it depends on the budget that they have and what they're prepared to put out. Or players have left because apparently they don't have money to pay, the salaries of these players, and whether these players would have wanted to move to Limpopo anyway is a moot point. So I think it's all a bit up in the air. And that if I was put myself in the shoes of any coach, I would definitely want some clarity on those situations before I was going to sign a contract there. Obviously, Owen Da Gama does have his roots in Venda and was coach of Dynamos back then, and where he started off, and he might want to go back. But these and also Highland, there's talk of Highlands Park hitting some quite serious financial trouble in terms of the businesses that are owned by their owners not really doing well, like most businesses in this strange time. So maybe there's a situation there where he gets released from his contract and he goes up there and he coaches there. But I think even if I was him or any other coach, I'd want some sort of. I hope that they lay out a vision for him that that has a proper structure and they have proper plans going forward. I'd like to see. Obviously, they're replacing Wits. I'd like to see them succeed, even though I don't necessarily agree with the way in which they've come into South African football, and that the system of simply just buying up franchises is a bit ridiculous to me. But it is the system that is there, and if you follow the rules and if the PSL approve it, then good for you. And they've come in, and Wits have decided to sell up, and I hope they have success. But I do hope, like Valide said, that if they can go and if they don't get the Gama, they get a young South African coach or a young coach from within the structures here. I think there are some very, very good foreign coaches that come here and coach, and then there are some really, really, really bad foreign coaches that come here and coach. And I just hope that they don't get one of the latter, who comes with a shiny CV and then sort of leaves very swiftly because he's not very good at his job. But if they can get someone young and who's got ambitions in the game and to coach as well, that'd be good. But I'd like to see them do well because we want. I think more than anything, we want to see a thriving PSL again, and we're all craving some top class South African football.
Are you confident, Mazola, that the gloved one and the brains trust up there at TTM are going to get this right, this appointment, and show us that they deserve to be here?
Look, I hope so, but if I'm judging by the manner in which this whole sale was done, then you you can't blame me for asking questions of how that's gonna turn out. Right. Things like telling a coach long even before the sale was ratified, and running to the media to tell the media that Gavin Hunt is without a job, even before he's been consulted and there's been talks about the future. You don't. That's not how you should operate. Especially treating a coach as successful as Gavin Hunt. But I think a lot of people are just sort of split right down the middle about TTM. There are some that obviously are happy to have yet another Limpopo team in the Premier Division, hoping that they survive and stick around longer, just as the likes of Black Leopards and Polokwane City and Baroka and that. And then there are some that just feel like this whole thing, the way it has happened, it's not, for the football purists, this is not how business should be conducted, and therefore would not be excited about them being successful and all of that. But let's see how it goes. I'm very interested to see, where the quality players to sustain them in the top flight are going to come from, especially if just about more than half of the vet squad are unlikely to relocate to Limpopo. Right. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, I mean, and the 1st of September is around the corner. Let's see how this is going. And look, things are going to have to move very quickly. Whether football restarts or it doesn't, things are going to have to move very quickly. if tomorrow or on Monday or whatever a decision is taken that the league is not starting, clubs are gonna quickly look to beef up their squads if they have the money to do so.
Yeah.
Players are gonna want their future secured, so it's gonna move very quickly. So and so you're gonna have to be the new owners are gonna have to be street smart, to play the game and operate just in the manner in which maybe they have been, let's hope they don't approach it in the manner in which they've approached the sale of Bidvest Wits, because if that's the blueprint for success, then they are, it's they are heading, it's a downward spiral from there onwards.
There we go. I'll let you end on that one. Thank you, gents. That's all we have as far as time is concerned for this week's show. We're almost there, folks. 1 or 2 episodes until we know for sure what's happening as far as local football is concerned. I'm sure of it. In the next 1 or 2 episodes, we will know whether it's all cancelled or if we're going to play football.
I can guarantee you in the next episode, you will know.
In the next episode, we'll know.
In the next episode, you will know. Because like we had said here previously, that La Liga has completed its program, right? And the EPL is completing its program. Yeah. Bundesliga is gone. And these are the top leagues in terms of eyeballs in the country, which were keeping people glued on TV. So now the PSL knows that this is the space to go for, because there's no other football. People will be watching. Yes, I know that there'll be Champions League, but that will be coming,
What's the veg? I guess this is what SAFA are trying to avoid. What happens when you're watching all that football and teams have 3, 4, 5 players out because they have COVID? Are those still the eyeballs that you want?
No. That's why most of those things are catered for in that PSE plan, because now the clubs will be moving into PSE.
That's fine. What if they get them now 2, 3, 4 top players?
Yes.
So watching their best product available.
Yes, and it's only players who have tested and officials who have tested negative. Only people who have tested negative will be going to the PSE.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that what if the best of the best or some of the best don't test negative and can't go into the BSC?
Well, the rules are rules. The rules are rules in this case.
The rules are rules.
I know now. You want to know names of who've tested?
No. I don't. I just want to say.
I'm saying be patient.
Okay.
The first is just next weekend.
And you're saying that come the first, the best of the best of our players in the PSL are going to be ready to go.
BOG has been moved to Monday, by the way, so there we go.
Oh.
Oh. The BOG has been moved to Monday. So
that's it. We're recording the podcast at 9:00 on Monday, guys. Just so
but I think it makes sense also because
Why the delay? Why the delay, Stavej?
No, but also because
the death. The chairman has lost his wife.
The chairman has lost his wife.
Fair enough.
So it's too soon for him to be engaging on other things, because I think he's still mourning the wife and still busy with the processes.
And I think it's such an important meeting that you probably can't let anyone else chair it. He has to chair it himself. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
So I think that's understandable.
But now
it's another delay. It's another delay, but under the circumstances, I suppose you can understand.
Yeah. But now it tells you now that Monday being the 27th, it's too close to the first.
Yeah, it's touch and go, guys. Yeah. Touch and go.
Yeah, you must speak to those betting people of yours, Stavej. There's money to be made here on this as a bet, as a punt, as to whether people can come back or not. There's money to be made. Jez, thank you very much for your time. Let's wait and see what happens on Monday. And of course, on that note, condolences to the Khoza family on the passing of Chairman Khoza's wife, Mayor Martina Khoza. From us as a front runner and obviously all the people involved in putting this podcast together, we extend our condolences to the family, friends, and of course the club of Orlando Pirates. That's it for us for this week. The second edition is done and dusted, but do join us in the new week where Velile is convinced we will know the way forward as to what's happening in football. If we don't, it's all on him. I'm kidding. It's all on the powers that be, man. We've been waiting to find out what happens. To John T, to Mazed, guys, thank you so much to all of you for your time. And thank you to you for tuning in. We'll catch up in the new week, hopefully with some good news. Until then, keep well.